Thanks everybody for coming out tonight, and thank you to the college counselors for coming to talk tonight. We are filming this, and it'll be in the Academy News either this week or next week. So if you just want to listen, if you're afraid you're going to miss something, don't worry about it because you'll be able to watch it. And I'll record some questions, and Andrew will develop some answers also as a different follow-up. So don't worry too much about missing anything. They'll tell you everything as you go. And before we get started on college counseling, I did want to give a moment to something going on May 2nd, which is Gala, and one of the co-chairs, Vanessa Clark, has agreed to come tonight and talk with you about it. So we'll give her a few minutes of our attention, and then we'll turn it over to Andrew and the counselors. Vanessa?
As Sheila said, the gala is on May 2nd this year, and I wanted to make sure that everybody understands what the gala is about. I think if I do my math correctly, this is about the 6th year I'll be going to it. I have a boy who's a junior and one that's graduated. He's a sophomore in college now. Anyway, so 6th year of gala. The first time I went to gala, I had no idea what to expect. And it was, I think I was in shock when I left because it's really an amazing thing. And nobody does this like Lake Forest Academy does. They've almost got a patent on the event. But this is for the LFA community. It's for the students. It's for the children. It's for the parents. It's for the entire community. This year we're going to be raising money for Cressy. It's important. It affects all of our children. Your children will see the effects of what we're raising money for and the changes next fall. That's what happens with Gala. The way the evening works is you have a cocktail hour before we go into the Cressy Auditorium, and you'll just get to socialize. Then in Cressy, there's going to be a presentation where we're going to showcase some of LFA talent. It's always entertaining and a little bit secretive until the night of the event, but always fun and entertaining. And then we'll have a paddle race or a Dutch auction. And if you haven't been to one before, it can sound a bit off-putting, but it isn't. There's a lot of privacy, and the energy in the room is absolutely palpable. The lower the numbers get, the more revved up everybody gets. There will be like 40 paddles in the air at one time, and everybody gives something. The faculty, it's really moving to see the faculty raise their paddles, and it's when we all get together and we're going to affect our kids' lives next fall. That's what's so fabulous about this particular event. And it's a lot of fun. After the paddle race, we're going to come into this hall, and we're going to have a beautiful 3-course dinner. Afterwards, we want you to linger longer at the Heartbeat Lounge. There's going to be soft rock and champagne and whiskey and dessert. And what am I forgetting, Sheila? Yeah, I want to read you, if I can, really quickly. This is on the inside of your invitation. You can go onto the website to sign up. Please do. And if you can't go, please go and give so that we have as much as we can to give Cressy. And this is what it says on the inside of your invitation. The Cressy Center for the Arts is where the LFA community comes together to be informed, entertained, and inspired. The all-school meetings, morning meetings, are woven into daily life. So our children go to the Cressy Center 3 times a week, and it's the only place on campus where the entire community can be together. It's the only place large enough. Student performances cover the spectrum of musical and dramatic arts. Cross-curricular projects materialize on the Cressy stage, while visiting speakers strike an emotional chord with their audiences in Cressy. Built in 2001, the Cressy Center for the Arts is home to our ever-expanding arts program. Funds raised at the Gala 2015 will provide cutting-edge audio, projection, lighting systems, creating a contemporary environment on par with LFA's hallmark educational experience. This is something we really need for all of our children, because at some point in their career, your child will stand on that stage and will learn from that experience, if not just the experience of being in Cressy. Completely lost my place, guys. Anyway, look on the inside of your invitation. I hope you'll join us. If you need help with finding a table with fun people to sit with, Susan Hoagland, Sheila Woolard, and myself, I've got room at my table, will help you. Please come, everybody. You're all welcome, and that's the goal. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Andrew Posca. This is my 11th year at Lake Forest Academy. I am the Dean of College Counseling and proud of that. Proud of the fact that I've gotten to work with some great students and great families over the course of more than a decade now, which makes me feel a little bit old to see some familiar faces in the crowd and know that I've had sibling and sibling and sibling. But it's good to see everyone here, and I think this is a good time to really check in with sophomore parents regarding, slightly before the second year mile marker of their high school careers. I know that there's a tendency, especially in affluent suburban enclaves across the country, to ratchet up the anxiety and the feeling of you're missing a step in regards to the college process, and I'm here to tell you that we have a great team of people here that will introduce themselves in a second to help dispel a lot of the misconceptions that are out there and to just get to know your children. First and foremost, we want to get to know them well so that we can help them figure out their path. And the college process, when done well, is a test of self-awareness. The better they understand themselves, the better college match that will be made, and the more success they'll have in college. So this is kind of the introduction to our office. If you haven't met each and every one of us before, we're going to introduce ourselves and tell you how we work with students and talk about how we, maybe some relevant topics, and I'll give you a snapshot of what we've seen this year, because I think that that's you hear a lot that's out there, and I'll give you a snapshot of what's happened to LFA seniors this year to maybe give you some insight as your children navigate the process. So first up, we'll go this way. So we'll do
Hi everyone, my name is Lindsay Buntman. I'm Associate Dean of College Counseling. April marks my second year at LFA.
Hi everybody, my name is Abby Croft and I'm the Assistant Dean of College Counseling, and I have been here for 2 years in July.
You've heard of this.
Good evening, I'm Carolyn Borowski. I'm the Dean of Admission. I'm also a college counselor here. This is my 5th year. My first 3 years I was primarily in the college counseling office, and last year I transitioned over to the admission office. I'm also a dorm parent in Atlas and coach track and field.
I think we're going to hand off to Lindsay next to set a little context and to let you know how we'll work with your children over the course of the next 2 years.
Okay, so we begin working with your students, your son or daughters, the moment they get on campus. We are observing them, we are watching them perform, we're watching them on the athletic fields, we're working with them in freshman seminar. So we really get to know your son and daughters by the time they're juniors and we're officially working with them. We know them pretty well. We meet with them in seminar once or twice their freshman year, and then we'll meet with them this spring. We'll show them their transcripts and talk about, is their production matching potential, and kind of explaining to them that their grades freshman year, their grades sophomore year, and junior year do count. We also talk to them about summer plans, which I think Carolyn will talk about, really making sure they're having productive summers. Then junior year is when we assign the college counselors, and we're very thoughtful about how we match students up with which counselor. We all coach sports or work with students in clubs and organizations. The 3 of my colleagues all live on campus. So we, like I said, we get to know the students really well. And so we match students up with the counselor that they've had the most interaction with. So we're really thoughtful with those decisions. We officially start meeting with them every cycle in January of their junior year. But in kind of early, mid-January is when we have the junior college workshop. which is, you might have heard about it from other parents, it's a really, really fun day. It's on a Sunday. We require all the students to attend and then encourage parents to attend if they live locally. We invite 13 college admissions directors from across the country, and we do kind of a mock admissions committee. So you're put into a classroom with one of the admissions directors, you read through 4 different applications, and as a committee, you decide which student to admit, which student to waitlist, and which 2 students to deny. It's a really great kind of first exposure to, you actually get to see applications, you're meeting with an admissions director, it's a really fun afternoon. And then after that, we begin to work with the juniors on a regular basis. We're also here all summer. So those of you who have students who are really on top of things, hopefully they'll be emailing us their essays over the summer, they'll be coming in to meet with us. So by the time senior year rolls around, they'll be ready to hit the ground running. Senior year, we continue to work with them throughout the fall and then in the spring. Really quickly, junior year is when we begin to talk about, really just get to know the students so we can help make, good college, help create, a good college list for them. So by the end of their junior year, they'll have a college list. We'll talk to them about college visits. We'll talk to them about essays. We'll help them come up with different ideas for their essay. So we really do offer kind of a comprehensive service. We're here for the students as much as they need from us. Some students, they'll just come into the regular cycle meetings, they kind of know what they're doing, they have things under control. And some students need a lot more hand-holding. And so we really adjust kind of how we work with students depending on their different needs. I think that covers it. Okay.
And the only thing I would add before that, just to give you some sense in terms of numbers, is we had 92% of the class had submitted a college application prior to November 1 this year. So we get them up and running, and I tell the students all the time, it's an options business, and so we'd like them to think about their options and really get going over the summer and early in the fall so that they can, kind of get ready to push that submit button. So that gives you some sense of they're up to speed. You want to go next?
Sure,
right.
I'll go next, because I'd rather not be last because I get to talk about testing, which I'm sure everybody in this group is really excited, and when they talk to their students, have you started thinking about what testing is for college, and you get that look of, what? So when it comes to testing, just like in the college process, there's really no one-size-fits-all approach. It's really about how your student, is looking through the college process, where they're applying, their strengths and weaknesses, and I think that that's one of the things that you can appreciate most with our office is we really do work with students through the testing and understanding maybe which test is better for them, or how many more times they should take it, or maybe slowing down and saying, hey, maybe taking the test every single month is not a good idea, especially if you're also traveling with the soccer team and doing the musical and doing all of this. When is the time that you're actually going to study for these tests, right? So in general, we say to the students that you should plan to take both the SAT and the ACT once, and then kind of go from there. We can assess based on their scores, and actually you can do this too just by looking at the conversion charts online, which test might suit them better. The ACT does have a science portion, and as you will hear from many students that have already taken it or you've read online or in books, the science section isn't really science, it's more graphs. So don't let that scare your student away from it. It also has a writing section that is considered extra, but most colleges will require a student to take the writing. So if a student is enrolling in the ACT, we suggest go ahead and take it with the writing. The SAT in January of 2016 is changing. You may have heard a little bit about this. Typically, in the past, the SAT has been considered more abstract in the way that you're working with word problems and such. Now it's going to be more using your logical reasoning and following more along the lines of what the ACT covers. There are practice questions available on College Board. There are test booklets already available, and we will have those available in our office as well, so students can kind of take a look at what the test is like coming up in January. The SAT is available in January, March, May, June, October, November, and December. And then the ACT is available in February, April, June, September, October, and December. So there's multiple times when a student can take the test, but a lot of that has to do with your test prep. And we do offer a class here at LFA in the spring, late winter, early spring. One covers the SAT, one covers the ACT, and it's through one-to-one learning. There are, of course, many tutors available, other classes outside, books, online classes, free tests. Definitely don't feel like you have to pay for test prep, but once again, it's not one size fits all. It's all about your student and how they best learn. Are they going to do better in a class, or can you trust that they're okay studying on their own? Or maybe it's a combination of multiple things. But we can work with your students regarding test prep and when the best time is to take the test, maybe based on their schedule of what they're doing here at LFA.
As Lindsay mentioned, I'm going to talk a little bit about activities, getting involved in summer programs. This is the time of year when we go into student seminar, when students reflect on their transcript and reflect on how they've been involved in the community. And for some students, it may be they haven't done much. Some students have been really active at LFA and in their local communities, but it is a really great time to reflect on that. For some students, it might motivate them to look at different opportunities to get involved here, to get involved at home, some volunteer opportunities locally as well, and to think about that as they come back for junior year. Schools aren't looking, and I think it's good to get involved for two different reasons. Obviously, tonight's focus is the college process, and it's good to get involved in terms of having those activities on your college resume. Schools like to see that students are well-rounded. They want to see that a student's going to do more than just study in the classroom, that they're going to get involved on their campus as well. That students are motivated, that they're driven, that they're eager to engage with their peers around them. It's also great to get involved at LFA. And, we always have this conversation with seniors, what have you done over your 4 years to give back to the community here? What's going to be your legacy when you graduate? And so it's really important for students now to start reflecting on that. Those who haven't necessarily gotten as involved or haven't necessarily found a club or an activity, it's great to meet with their advisor or teacher that they're pretty close with, to sit down with you guys. There's a full club list online on the Student Activities webpage, and Kate Jones is a really great resource as well, the Assistant Dean of Students, and that's her focus is really student development, student leadership. And so you can reach out to her, you can reach out to your son or daughter's advisor, but it's a really nice time to start reflecting on that. Junior year, and a number of our juniors are going through the process right now, is kind of the big leadership year. So in April, students will start to reflect on whether or not they want to run for student council president, whether they've been nominated for prefect or proctor, and a number of service learning and leadership opportunities. And it's kind of what students have done up until that point that the faculty have noticed on campus that enables them to get nominated for those leadership opportunities. And so this is also a nice time to think about that and kind of take a step back and see who they've been in the classroom and outside of the classroom. Over 80% of us live on campus, and so we see the students throughout the day, in the evening, and so it's important to think about who they are in the community, and if they're a day student, have they been engaged in the community? Are they taking advantage of the boarding environment that we offer here? And that's what colleges are looking for. They reflect back to us, the students who are able to talk about those experiences, those moments in their interviews, or when they see that on their resume. Those are the students that truly stand out in the application process. In regards to the summer, it's a nice time to start thinking about what your son or daughter may be doing this summer. don't feel as though, if you have something planned and they're not able to do a separate opportunity, it's not as though they're not going to get into a top college, but it's nice for students to start to reflect on, are they going to be productive this summer? Is there something that they can do, whether volunteering locally? Can they, spend some time in a hospital if they're thinking about maybe studying medicine and going on to med school, just to get some exposure to different professions and different majors. And there's a number of different colleges that will host summer programs. And those academic programs sometimes are a week, and sometimes they'll go up until 6 weeks. And it's a great opportunity for students to be on a college campus, just to get an understanding of what that means. But also, what is a small school in, a small town in Colorado, like a Colorado college feel versus, being on University of Michigan's campus. And so different schools will feel very different. And over the next couple of years, it's going to be important for your sons and daughters to get on different college campuses and start to reflect on where they think they'll really flourish and which college is going to be the best fit for them. And the summer programs are a really great opportunity to begin to explore that, but also to begin to explore different academic majors. We offer a lot of different classes, and through the elective courses during junior and senior year, students will be able to take a psychology or potentially sociology and some different courses, but we aren't able to offer every single college major that's out there. And summer programs can be really helpful for students to begin to explore different college majors and to get an understanding of what that means. What is mechanical engineering, and to really be able to reflect on whether or not that's a good major, because most engineering programs, you'll start that curriculum your first year. So summer programs are great for that. Another opportunities, there are a number of international programs. We work with school year abroad, but that's not necessarily a great fit for everyone to study abroad for their junior or senior year. And so some of those international programs are a nice opportunity for students to potentially further their language skills, to get exposure to different countries as well. And there's a full list of different summer programs, both academic and international programs, on the College Counseling website. If you go to our website, there's a Parents tab, and at the bottom you'll see there's been a list that's been compiled. And as I mentioned before, Kate Jones is a really great resource for that. It's important, and we'll say to students all the time, not to be too programmed, not to be too scripted. There's not kind of one single formula that colleges are looking for, which I know is difficult to hear. And it's difficult when we're working with students and they're asking, what they should do. We want students just to begin to explore who they are, figure out what they're interested in and what their passions are. So there's not one direct path, but it's important to just do something, start to stay busy, whether it's working, or if it's volunteering, or if it's, all of these experiences are really important for students at this age. And it's, great in the college process, they'll reflect a lot on who they are and some of the experiences that they've had. And so all of those experiences during the school year and during the summer are great for them to reflect on, sometimes in those personal statements or in those interviews and in their college essay.
I guess I'll take the mic here and just touch upon a couple of points that have been mentioned thus far in Carolyn's, I guess her final message in the way that I describe it as the less constructed, the more compelling is what I tell our college applicants. If you look as though you've been preparing for this moment since childbirth, then you're not going to be such a compelling applicant, because they want to see that you get life's texture, that you are a real human being, that you're not robotic. So I think that that's a big point to make. And there's ways to get life's kind of texture just down the road, or by community service, by understanding the city of Chicago. There's going to be a kind of probably a little bit of a stigma on students applying from suburban areas, that have they gotten outside of a bubble. And so I think a great way to, as sophomore parents, is to really encourage your student to get to know the city of Chicago and its culture, because that's a great way to kind of distinguish themselves. I've had students who are seniors who wouldn't know how to get to Chicago from up here, and I think that's a shame. if they graduate here and haven't explored the city a little bit. The second point I wanted to make is that we are college prep. We believe in that mission. And because we're college prep, hopefully we're preparing our students to hit the ground running. I was just at Rhodes College last week, and I was talking to a young woman who's a senior who they were touting as one of their all-stars on campus. And we were having lunch, and a great conversation, and she was saying, you know, how much she had enjoyed her experience at Rhodes, how involved she was. And she's like, you know what? She's like, you know, you work at Lake Forest Academy, you get it. She's like, I went to Western Reserve, and that's what prep school kids do. They get involved. There's an ethic of participation that, you know, that you just get on campus and you ask where the admissions office is and you try to help out there maybe, or you get involved in a club sport. And I think that that's really what you're buying into by sending your son or daughter to LFA, is the fact that you are hopefully, they're nurturing in themselves an ethic of participation that's going to carry them forward through their college experience. So those 2 points that I did want to make, and then I'll get to the juicy stuff, the trends from this year, which I think is kind of interesting. This year's senior class is you'll hear probably through the parent and student grapevine once it comes out. They've had quite a bit of success, probably as much success as any class I've seen in my 11 years at Lake Forest Academy. I think that there was a pretty good synergy between a very motivated class, a class that did well testing-wise, and then a class that had a lot more athletes than we probably ever had at LFA. We'll send probably 22 students that will go on to play either a Division I or Division III sport in a class of 124. And athletics can help a college admissions decision. So that's kind of the perfect storm of things happening. A very motivated group that did well with testing, that were involved in the community and good kids, but they also they had some other stuff that made them even more compelling candidates in the college admissions process. They also, just to let you know some trends, we had more students apply early decision this year than we've ever had before. That number was over 40%. When I first got to LFA, it was around 20 or 25. I imagine, so 40% of the class went ED. Early decision, for those that don't know, is a binding agreement. It means that if admitted, you will attend. And obviously schools, as they start to figure out, you know, finances and things get tighter. Many people have heard that Sweetbriar College, a women's college in Virginia, closed its doors just recently. So there are some schools out there that are ultra aware of finances, and I think that the ED component, you know, helps them, you know, put some money in the bank, so to speak. And so, of that 40% of the class that went early decision, 70% of those students were admitted. So a 70% success rate from that group, which is very, very high. And it speaks to, number one, students making good, you know, doing their homework, identifying good college matches, working with their college counselor, you know, to say, geez, you know, this is probably a wheelhouse type of place for me, maybe a slight stretch, but not, you know, a huge stretch. I always tell parents and students that they want to stretch, but stretch with your feet on the ground in terms of looking at schools. Because if you're trying to jump, then it's probably not going to work out. So that's the early decision kind of trend that I've noticed. The second trend that's been interesting this year is medium-sized schools in or near urban centers, medium-sized to large schools in or near urban centers. Their applications are skyrocketing. UCLA just came out with the fact that they had, for undergraduate admission this year, 94,000 applicants. I repeat, 94,000. So that's unbelievable. USC had 54,000 applicants. 52, 54, I think they were 52. Boston University had 54,000 applicants. Boston University had 34,000 applicants last year. They moved up 20,000 applicants in 1 year. they were waitlisting 3.630s this regular round that in the past they would take without any hesitation. It was crazy. They had a 146% increase in their international applicants. And so what we've seen is that those schools around urban centers are attractive places for international students. Thus, their application numbers are steadily, not even steadily, increasing some more. So that's an interesting little tidbit. On the flip side, you have places in the Midwest and in the Southeast, small liberal arts schools that are great places and that offer a great education that are, kind of standing still in terms of their application numbers, and probably worried about, their place in higher ed right now. That's not saying that they're not great educational institutions and potentially offering an even better academic experience for some students than some places that are close to our city. It's just saying that their numbers are probably a little bit stagnant. However, the good thing about that is, as I said, I was just at Rhodes, and even though it's in a city, it probably crosses over with a lot of these places in the Southeast and the Midwest, small liberal arts schools. And there's kind of a merit war going on. And something that's talked about quite a bit is discount rate. And so what discount rate means is the average price each student pays to attend that college for a year. So you have your sticker price, but then a lot of schools will try to win a student over by offering them merit money. And there's some merit wars going on out there. I was talking to a person from a small liberal arts school, and he just was dumbfounded because he said, we admitted this student, and we admitted them after waitlisting them, and a peer school admitted them regular and offered them 20 grand in merit money. So the good news for folks that are maybe looking for aid, or families that are not going to qualify for aid but are still looking for merit money, those would be places to look, because you can get you could go to school for less than it costs to go to the University of Illinois or Urbana-Champaign, to use an example. I talked a little bit about athletes, but that was a big, that was a big thing that we noticed. If your son or daughter is an athlete and they're interested in playing a college sport, I would definitely recommend that they talk to their coach, talk to their club coach, and talk to a college counselor about moving forward. The college recruiting process is earlier and earlier now. So by the fall of the senior year, a lot of the students have committed or have a really good understanding of what their options are. So again, we're happy to have those conversations. We're pretty fluent in the language of athletic recruiting and would be more than happy to meet at any time with families now or next fall or this summer, whenever questions come up. And then the last thing I just wanted to mention was waitlist options. And right now we're at the point where most colleges, if all colleges, have made their decisions. And so they've made their decision, and so the three decisions are admit, deny, waitlist. And admit is pretty clear cut. You have that as an option. If you've applied early decision, that's where you're going. Deny is pretty clear cut. You can't really appeal without any new information. We've had that tough conversation with some students. Can I appeal? And then you ask them, appeal with what? Is there new information? They say they should have just made a different decision, and that probably argument doesn't hold water. And then the third decision is a defer, which turns into maybe a wait list, and that means that the school is going to wait until after May 1st to get a better understanding of their numbers, and then if they're low, then they'll offer some wait list. They'll offer some students a chance to come off the wait list to be admitted. What students and parents don't understand oftentimes is that most schools nationally, even if they go to their wait list, are going to their wait list for 5 to 10 to 15 students. On average, they're probably waitlisting 3, 4, or 5,000 students. So you're not just this close, you're probably a lot further away than that in terms of being admitted. So you need to get really lucky. Has it happened where we've gotten students off a wait list? Sure. But the natural psychology of thinking that that wait list means I'm pretty close is just not true. Other things that we've been talking to the seniors about just to let you know, and you may want to talk to your sophomores about Oklahoma, what went on that campus, and that's an interesting. I don't know if everybody's heard how many people. There was an incident at the University of Oklahoma where in a fraternity there was a very racist song that some members of that fraternity were singing. That story went viral pretty quickly. So we have been talking to our seniors about appropriate behavior, obviously, number one. Number two is the fact that you are sometimes the company that you keep. So as you go on to join organizations, whether they be Greek organizations or otherwise, that if you notice two knuckleheads in the crowd, the larger community could have the sense that you're a knucklehead too. So just being sure that that you're making good decisions. So we've talked about that with the seniors. The UVA story was just in the Times this past weekend about a woman who was raped many years ago at the University of Virginia. But sexual assault on college campuses is something that you should be aware of as a hot topic. How colleges respond, react. If they take the cases to the authorities, how that happens. So that's really interesting. That's really a hot topic in higher ed right now. And then I think that the last hot topic that's been talked about is making that liberal arts education relevant, and how students are accessing career centers at a much earlier rate than they have in the past. I know when I went to college, I had pretty much, we didn't have email until I was like a sophomore and junior, but I didn't access the college career center until my senior year. You'd be amazed at how early students are getting into the college career centers and accessing internships, because the studies show that the quicker they're getting there, that first internship or having an internship or two in college, it probably leads to them gaining employment at a much higher rate than the student that hasn't accessed that career center until a later point. So I hope that, kind of all over the place there, but I hope that you felt as though that was good information, and now I'd open it up to any general questions that you have.
You talked about how the applications are going up and up, doubling, right?
At some places.
At some place, okay, but does that mean there's more people are applying to college, going to college, or are the spaces diminishing, or?
Yes and yes. There are more people applying to college. There are more of the people like us out there that are really trying to advocate for students. So you see more and more, and then you see schools that are diminishing the amount of merit aid or increasing the merit aid. So when we are talking with students about the places that they're going to apply to, we really try and talk to them about what the reach and the target and the likely schools are for them, because you're looking at your student. We're not looking at everybody else. We're looking at your student and their aspirations, the places that they want to go. We talk within our office about the different options for a student and where it might be more likely that they could have an option to go to, or what might be a better reach school than say a Stanford or something like that if they have their heart set on one particular area. So, yes, there are more kids going to school. There's more push. There are more of us out there that are really trying to look for those opportunities for students. But in general, I think that in our office, we're really trying to make sure that we have the right options so that there aren't as many no's coming to your mailbox in the fall.
Are they applying to more schools are students applying to more schools? Is that why there are more applications?
I think in fact our students, I'm proud to say, I think have ratcheted down the number of schools. I think that and this is going to pain me to say this, but I think that we had one student that applied to 19 schools. But that student, that wasn't wise, because the more schools that you apply to, the more application supplements you're going to have to write, which means that the quality of each and every application that you send out is probably going to go down. You're going to make mistakes just because you're trying to, stay afloat in AP Physics and do your reading for AP English Lit and then write college essays, and so you're going to get sloppy. So we encourage between 8 to 10 or 12. We may encourage a couple more for students that want to cast a wider net for financial aid options.
When is a good time to start taking the first SAT exams, and how many times do you advise the kids to take?
And that's a great question for us, and we welcome students to come in and talk to us about it. I know I've worked with a couple students, and each school is different in terms of how they look at the ACT and SAT. The most selective schools will ask you to send in every single test that you've taken. And so I've had some students who have encountered problems where they've just kind of taken it in the fall of their junior year just to take it and got a pretty low score. And it came back up later on when, they jumped up quite a bit. But some of those schools that are kind of that top tier will ask for that score junior year, even if it's much lower, they're still looking at that score. We'll encourage students to start looking at tests in spring of their junior year. There are some students who will take that December test, or we'll start to look at that fall of junior year, and that's fine as long as it's a thoughtful choice. Some athletes are encouraged to take it a little bit sooner. Coaches want those ACT and SAT scores, but for the most part, for the SAT, January or March, I think that March test is great. Sometimes, though, it falls over our spring break, so it can be a tricky date. And for the ACT, the February, April tests are good dates. And I'm opening another bag of worms, but we also always get the question in terms of students are going to test prep. Should they take the test first and then test prep, or test prep before they take the test? And that's really dependent on the student as well. And so that's something that we welcome you guys to come in and talk with any of us, for your sons and daughters to talk with any of us as well. Going back to kind of those students who are going to be applying to the most selective schools, it may be in their best interest to go ahead and test prep before they take the test. But for some students, it's great to be able to take the test, see where you're at. As Abby mentioned, we encourage students to take both the SAT and ACT. And so if you take both and see which one is a better test, and then maybe prep after that. And so it is such an individualized basis in terms of which tests to take and when to take them. So please come in and talk to us about that. The other test that is good to know, some schools, and depending on kind of the school and the major, will ask for the subject tests, the SAT 2s. And so for students who are looking to take the SAT 2s, this kind of at the end of sophomore year, we'll have students maybe looking to take the world history or the math 2. And that's something to come and talk with us about as well. If students are in AP World, that's something definitely to consider. However, it can be a pretty difficult test, and sometimes students aren't ready to take it. And so it may be better for them to hold off until junior year. Typically for the subject test, we encourage students, if you're taking APs junior year, it's a great idea for you then to take a May or June subject test, because you've been prepping hard for the APs. And so it's a great time to then kind of cap it off that summer. I would say the most selective schools in the country are looking for subject tests, typically 2, sometimes 3, and then certain majors, engineering for instance, a lot of schools who, if you're applying to their engineering program, want the math 2 as well as the science. But it's also good sometimes to have a language or an English or a history, just to show the versatility of your application too.
You mentioned several times about coming in and speaking with the office, and I'm just wondering how that, what the office's approach is and how that dynamic works with our students who are having conversations with you, and then the parents that, obviously we don't want to be overbearing and we don't need to be in every meeting, but want to be kind of kept abreast of some of those discussions. What do you suggest in terms of how we're managing that in the conversations and just being involved in some of those decisions?
I think that we, we welcome questions, comments, concerns. I think that I have 35 college counselors this juniors this year, and I think that I've met with about 28 parents of those 35 already, and some of them on more than one occasion, sometimes 2 or 3 occasions. I've always been a big believer that the better we get to know one another, and that you see, that I am human and I'm not this person that's just telling your son or daughter that this school's a stretch and that I don't have a sense of humanity. Then I think that we can make things work. And the better we get to know one another, the better the better the process is probably going to work out. And Lindsay, do you want to add about the brag sheet?
Sure. So I think a lot depends on have you been through this before with, an older sibling or not. So, I mean, there's no silly question, there's no dumb question. I have parents email me all the time, call me all the time, and just have one quick question, or are having trouble signing up for the ACT online and they lost their password. Like, we're here to help. And there's going to be some parents who have more needs than other parents. And like I said, we're here for you. We're here for your son or daughter. So please reach out to us. One thing that we will be asking of you, which is incredibly helpful for us, is we'll probably hand it out next spring, is this parent brag sheet, where we ask you, 15 questions about your son or daughter. Some are really personal. It helps us get the information that your son or daughter might have forgotten to mention. I can't tell you how many times I've learned things about students that I had no idea. I didn't know that they were dyslexic, or I didn't know that they, a parent was sick. Just things that they just forget to mention. That is incredibly helpful for us getting to know them and us being able to advocate for them and us being able to write really thoughtful recommendations. So we ask that you fill them out and take your time with them because we do use them. It is incredibly helpful for us once you fill out that parent brag sheet.
I have something to add too.
Yeah.
Before you're assigned a college counselor, feel free to contact any of us. So I know parents don't know necessarily who to contact. We'll assign college counselors end of September, beginning of October of the junior year. But if you guys have questions now, just call any of us in the office and we're happy to help. And same thing for your children. And we all know the sophomores pretty well, and so your son or daughter probably has gotten to know one of us pretty well. We're all pretty welcoming as well. So have them stop by our office or give us a call. Before we're assigned a specific student, and even when we have a specific student, when I'm out of the office, my students will pop by Andrew's office and ask him questions and vice versa. And so that's what we tell students all the time, that we're all resources for all of them. And so we're here to help, and so feel free to call any of us.
And the last thing I'll say on that too is just that we understand that people work for livings, and so we're willing to meet after work, before school, on weekends. That's one of the beauties of us living on campus is that we're around a lot. So a Saturday morning meeting, a Sunday morning meeting, those are all times that we're willing to meet. So that's a little different from the public school model, obviously.
I ran into a college counselor from another prep school back east, and he told me that the colleges are trying to encourage the girls to go into the sciences and the boys to go into the liberal arts. Question number one, have you heard anything like that? Question number two, are you aware of any other trends that universities are trying to push their applicant pools towards?
Yeah, I think, for as long as we can remember, it's more common for, men to be in science and math and for women to pursue history and English. And I think, you can look at all the research and for whatever reason that may be, there are a ton of programs that are encouraging women to go into one of the STEM fields. I would say most colleges try to have a gender balance. There are more women applying to college than men, but I think it just it just depends. I mean, we want students to pursue the fields that they're most interested in. So you're not necessarily going to get into a better school as a woman if you apply as a female engineer. So we really just kind of try to work with students. I would say I'm not like surprised by that finding, but it's not as kind of clear cut as that. But I mean, we want students to pursue the fields that they're most excited about. I mean, we're aware that at some colleges, there are certain programs that are more competitive for all students, and we'll definitely be open with students about that. A school like Johns Hopkins, if you apply as an English major, you're probably more likely to get in than if you apply as an engineer. So we're aware of those kind of competitive majors at different places, and we're open with students about it, and they'll be open with students about it as well.
I mean, I think that the fact of the matter is that, I have a 5-year-old daughter as well, and she'll come up against this too, in that girls applying to small liberal arts schools, the swimming's a little bit more difficult because they're applying at a higher rate. Boys at small liberal arts schools probably get a little bit of an advantage because a lot of places struggle to keep a 55-45 balance even.
Good evening, and thank you for lots of great information. It's a little bit hard sometimes to keep track of chronology of things that are supposed to be happening, will be happening. If I have it correctly, the assignment of the students to each and every one of you will happen in the fall of this upcoming year, the junior year. However, they are, right now as we speak, selecting classes for the fall of their junior year. And how do you interact with the student, with their guidance, their advisors? And what is it that this particular student has an affinity for, aptitude for, so that when you come up against SAT subject matter testing in January, about this time next year, that they've already had some exposure to that subject matter? How does that all work?
Two different questions. But I would say that Lindsay and I were around over spring break, and we spent 2.5 days, a couple days. We knocked it out pretty quickly, but we reviewed transcripts with Chris Tennyson for every student on campus. We made notes relative to the progression, relative to how students were performing, relative to what they were recommended for. So we've jumped in a little bit more wholeheartedly, I would say, in that discussion. Because we realize that those things do have impacts on their college landscape.
Yeah, I mean, they'll pay no attention to what the parents might suggest.
And we've told advisors had been told by Mr. Tennyson that college counselors helped with the decisions and that college counselors are around. So advisors will come to me, will come to Lindsay, and they'll ask questions. They're getting much better about that. I think that the lines of communication are much stronger now than they've ever been. I would say to your second point, how do they get access to enough material so that they can take a subject test? That's really predicated on the foundation that they have in a particular area. Because if they're in APA, for instance, and then they jump into BC Calc, they're probably ready to take Math 2 subject tests. They are. They've had enough math. However, if they're in Algebra 2 and they're jumping into pre-calculus, they're not ready to take Math Level 2. They might not be ready to take Math 2 until the fall of their senior year, and that's fine. But you don't want to. It's a balancing act between rigor of program and success. Schools don't like to see the C+ or the B- in an advanced or AP class is probably is not. They're going to find other students that have been in that AP class and gotten A's. That's the nature of these applicant pools. And so the question that we often get asked is, should the student take an AP class and get a B, or should they take a regular class and get an A? And the savvy college admissions person like Lindsay or like Abby, who have worked on the college side, and Carolyn, will say, unfortunately, in our applicant pool, we can find both. We can find students that have pursued the rigor and taken a lot of advanced classes, but also gotten A's. But I think that you don't want to get C's. That's for sure. They don't like hooks, as I tell the student.
Andrew, quick question. Given the statistics that you gave us on the subject of deferment and thus waitlist,
Yeah.
do you suggest as college counselors and/or would you suggest as parents that we treat those deferments and waitlists as no's and move on?
Yeah, I mean, from, working on the college side, like, I wish that we didn't waitlist students or defer students. I think sometimes colleges use it as a softer no, and it's a lot harder for the students to get over it and move on. So I would say, I mean, if you are waitlisted to a school, one, you might not find out till July or even August, so you have to deposit at another school. So it makes sense that you get excited for another school, you kind of clear your mind of the other places, and if you happen to get off a wait list in July or August, you can make that decision then. But you do kind of have to move on because the likelihood of getting off that wait list is like nearly impossible.
And we've seen with some colleges that they defer everybody, or they don't deny anybody. They admit or they defer when it comes to that first decision. And that's just like Lindsay said, I mean, it's hard for us too in the office because we want students to obviously move on and think of another place that they'd be more interested in. But there's still that hang up, like, well, maybe what might happen. And I think we all have students probably right now that are dealing with waitlist issues and they have to make a decision as to another place that they're 100% happy at being in case that's the only opportunity.
And chances are very low, but I would say that that's the reason why you have your student attend the information session at LFA when the college admissions person comes, and you have them attend a local town meeting, even if they've already been to. So points of contact with a particular person and staying in touch, because it's really, really, really random. And you wouldn't believe how unbelievably random it is. At the University of Michigan, it just so happened that on the day that we decided to go to the wait list, I happened to be playing golf with the director of admissions because nobody else in the office could play golf, so I was like his guy, which turned out well for me because that I got to play golf at like 2 o'clock on Tuesdays. But he said happens on the course. Hey, we just got the email. We're going to go to the wait list. Do you have anybody that you'd like to put up? And that's how random it was. If somebody else was playing golf with them that day in the office, they would have been the person that got to put up a student. So it's really, really random. So there's no ranking of wait list. It's unbelievably random.
Which 5 or 6 schools have the highest acceptance rate over the last 5 or 6 years of LFA students?
For LFA students?
Like, where do we send the most students?
Acceptance rates. The students may not necessarily go there, but in terms of which, yeah.
We do really well at U of I. We are different than a lot of other schools in that we send students north, south, east, west. Unlike some of the other larger publics in the area that are predominantly Big Ten places, a lot of the Stevensons, Glenbrook North, South, they're really Big Ten. It's Big Ten country. Whereas we're way more random. In terms of our placement of students, over the last 5 years, it's U of I, it's Northwestern, NYU, BU, and Colorado College would be a small place. We've done well at Bowdoin. I think that probably are probably wheelhouse types of places over traditionally have been the kind of the medium-sized research places, like at Northwestern. So you think of Northwestern peers, that's probably have been wheelhouse places for LFA students, and some of that is that we're quarter international, and international students tend to be more pre-professional. So that parents want them to pursue or a little bit probably less encouraging of a liberal arts kind of path.
So do you feel like it's your relationships at these schools that really drive admissions for the students here?
It's funny, I think that the students kind of sell themselves. So we have our college fair in the fall where we have, 200 admissions people and alumni. And then we have about over 100 college admissions directors come to campus just to meet with students. And I can say this from experience. So when I was working at admissions at Bucknell, like LFA was my favorite school to visit. I loved the students. They were incredibly impressive. They're so polite. They speak to adults so comfortably. They engage, they ask questions. So really the students sell themselves. So college admissions directors really do like LFA students. So I'd say it's not us and our relationships with these admissions directors, but it's the students that really do impress the admissions directors. So I say, over the years we have built great relationships with these admissions directors, but it's more to be able to call them up and ask questions and to be able to say, hey, we, have the student and, whatever the question may be, that they're kind of our colleagues in the field, but it's more the students that are the ones that are kind of selling themselves. That answers your question.
I'd say also it helps when they're coming to campus. Colleges out there know who we are. They know of the rigor at LFA. They know the type of students who are here. That it's so much more than just inside the classroom. They're seeing their personality. They're seeing the way they interact with individuals. They know what our transcript means. We always get asked, why we don't have a weighted transcript. And, that's something where colleges know and understand what our rigor is, how it's preparing students for the next step. And that tends to help students in the process, that they come out of LFA, they're really prepared. We always get feedback from colleges that our students will go and work in admission offices at their school. They're the first lines for that college, and that speaks really well to who our students are, too. And we'll get feedback from colleges that students are doing really well at their school, that their GPAs are quite strong. And so that our alums experience on that college campus helps our students in the application process as well. LFA is nationally known, and because of that and our relationships with schools, it does help in addition to that student really advocating for themselves and being spectacular in the moment and really standing out to the admissions officers.
And I would also just say, that Chicago is a market that, to a certain extent, it's a business model or business concept, but Chicago is a market that a lot of people or a lot of colleges recognize as an important market moving forward, because demographics are starting to slip a little bit. There will start to be less and less high school seniors in the pool, and so schools are pretty aware of the fact that they want to be on the North Shore of Chicago. So I think more than a relationship, that being geographically Chicago helps right now. And the roads people were saying that this weekend. It's a direct flight. It was $257. There's a lot of connections based on the migration patterns of African Americans and slaves. There's a lot of connections between former slaves, between Memphis and Chicago. Families, there's a lot of crossover. So they were really like, we need to be in Chicago. We need to hit it hard. We need to start doing better in Chicago. So that's the feedback I got this past weekend.
Did I understand you say that there will be an ACT or SAT class, test prep class that they can take? They do not take them both?
They can take them both.
Okay, and
Yeah.
they will be offered in the spring?
And then again in the fall. Yeah.
How is it known which colleges are visiting the campus which week? Because, students get caught up in their day-to-day of, I've got 3 tests tomorrow and I have a track meet or whatever. And I think that it would be helpful for parents to be able to say, no, this has to be a priority this week. Make sure you go to X meeting.
It's on our website, and it's posted on our website about a week. Yeah,
like a month.
Yeah, as soon as the meeting is set, it's on our website.
And if they have the school listed in Naviance as a school they're interested in, they get an email saying, on Tuesday at 10 o'clock, Michigan's visiting. And, as we meet with them, we remind them, on Tuesday, you better be there or you're gonna be in big trouble. So it's on there's a great calendar on our website where you can see each day and see who's visiting, and they get an email, and we remind them, and we put up posters outside the College Council office.
What is the Naviance registration begin with? When do they get put into that system?
Yeah, junior spring.
And the thing is too, with the college visitors, juniors are not allowed to miss class, but if they don't have a class at that time or it's break, we have people here from 8 until 4 sometimes. So they can come in, at least run in and get a business card, say hello. Obviously that touch point is important. As a senior, they can miss class, obviously, with permission from their teachers.
We have time for maybe one more question. One more question, sure.
Do you utilize Hobson's for your placement and fit of the student with the program?
That's Naviance.
Hobson's
Well,
or Naviance?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Naviance, yes.
With Naviance, we deal maybe different from what you've heard some of the public schools. Some of the public schools allow students to have more access to numbers and back history. We've been doing a really wonderful job these past couple of years in cleaning up the information that's in there and making sure that then when we talk to students, we can say, look, these are the students, this is the basic profile of an LFA student that has been admitted to this school, but then also there's other things that go on that you can't see based on just GPA and test scores, That's why I think with the things that we're doing in our office, we make sure that list is for that student, not just for their test scores. It's more their,
And each one of us could say over the years are so in tune with what's in Naviance that if you came into the office and we encourage you to come in, what is a 3-2-24 interested in business? What does a list look like? And we could kick out a list pretty quickly and let you know chances. I mean, we're rarely surprised in decisions. And most of the time it's because we're a little bit conservative. So, but we're really we're really surprised on the other end, of seeing a student not get into a place that we really thought that they would be admitted to. So, thanks everyone again for coming out tonight. We appreciate your time. Again, come talk to us. Let us know when you have questions.